Napoleon's 2-year military campaign in Egypt was a complete disaster. Over 9,000 men were killed, and the French navy was decimated by the British. Those who remained were now trapped in Egypt, isolated by a British naval siege along the Mediterranean coast. However, both scientifically and culturally, the Egyptian expedition was of great and long-lasting importance. This was the birth of modern archaeology, man's search for his own past. And with the discovery of the Rosetta Stone, it seemed as if the great secrets of Egypt would be finally revealed. The door was now poised to be opened onto this long, silent land of magic and mystery. The looming deciphering of the hieroglyphs was keenly watched by both the French and English military. French officers in Egypt knew firsthand the power and glory of the ancient Egyptians. The indisputable evidence was before their eyes. The pyramids and temples were obviously built by a great and advanced civilization. If the Rosetta Stone could be used to translate their language, might Egypt's former glory be resurrected and become that of France? How quickly could the French decipher the stone and thus read the hieroglyphs? Would the code be cracked before the British forced their surrender? Under military orders, scholars at the Institute raced to complete the deciphering. The Rosetta Stone had 3 texts written on it, each in a different script. Reading top to bottom, they were hieroglyphs, demonic, and Greek. The Greek section told of the tablet having the same information written in all 3. While Greek was easily understood, several obstacles stood in the way of using it to translate the 2 Egyptian scripts. First and foremost, nobody had been able to speak or read either Egyptian language for almost 2,000 years. The French had no idea as to what any of the Egyptian symbols or words meant. Were the signs phonetic, like an alphabet, or were they pictorial, like Chinese character writing? Without any clues, they had to start from scratch. A second hurdle was that the stone was broken at the top and sides. The hieroglyphic section at the top was the most damaged. Only 14 lines of text existed. The demonic section in the middle had all of its 32 lines of text, but was broken along the right side. The Greek section consisted of 54 lines. The frustrated French had no way of knowing which words or lines of text matched up with which Greek words. As it turned out, time was not on their side. In August 1801, 2 years after the discovery of the Rosetta Stone, the English ended their siege, attacking and forcing the French to surrender Egypt. As part of the withdrawal agreement, French military officers were allowed to keep all their personal possessions, but the Institute in Cairo had to hand over all of their discoveries. The academics were furious. What right did the British military officers have to abscond with the legacy of the past? Egypt belonged to mankind. What would become of these priceless treasures?
When the British got the French to surrender at Alexandria, the Rosetta Stone was already famous, although I think it was more famous in France than it was in Britain. But it was certainly regarded as one of the spoils of war, and it was regarded as one of the fruits of the British victory. The French were distinctly reluctant to let the stone out of their hands and hid it away, trying to pretend they hadn't got it.
You are taking from us our collections, our drawings, our copies of hieroglyphs. But who will give you the key to all that? Without us, this material is a dead language that neither you nor your scientists can understand. Sooner than permit this vandalous spoliation, we will destroy our property. We will scatter it amid the sands and throw it into the sea. If it is celebrity you are aiming for, very well. You can count on the long memory of history. You too will have burnt a library in Alexandria. Member of the French Institute in Cairo, 1801.
General Jacques Menou, now in command after Napoleon's flight back to France, attempted to keep the Rosetta Stone in French hands. After failing in an attempt to smuggle the stone out of Egypt by ship, Menou had it wrapped in cloth and hidden among his private possessions. If confronted, Menou would claim it was his personal property and thus exempt from forfeiture. Knowing the French would try to slip the Rosetta Stone out of the country, the British military brought in William Hamilton from Greece to Egypt. He had an eye for the antiquities of the world. While in Greece, he was instrumental in acquiring the Elgin marbles from the Parthenon in Athens. The British knew he would not leave Egypt without more treasures for the king. Hamilton and the British military suspected Manu of hiding the stone. When confronted at his home in Alexandria, Manu protested vigorously his right to keep the stone, but the British officers were insistent. At the point of a gun, Manu agreed the French were on the losing end of this battle. Rather than destroy the stone, Manu agreed the British were stronger and had won the right to this most valuable of trophies. William Hamilton confirmed the stone was authentic, and the British Army finally took possession of their prize. The Rosetta Stone was immediately shipped back to England, arriving in February 1802. England now had the key, but the French had made copies. The race began in earnest now to see who would decipher its cryptic mysteries first. With all the power and riches of Egypt at hand, fame and glory was destined to the man who found the key. As nations watched, top scholars battled each other to be the one who opened the door. How did bitter rivalries develop between friends? Who were the men who tried and failed to crack the code? Would the Rosetta Stone ever reveal its answers? While ancient Egypt was being rediscovered by the French and English, significant events were unfolding in other parts of the world. The United States of America doubled its size by signing the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. Captains Lewis and Clark would soon lead a 2-year expedition across this uncharted land. Thomas Elgin captured the public's imagination when he arranged to take sculptures from the Parthenon in Greece and have them shipped to England. And in China, after nearly 4,000 years of rule, the dynastic era was nearing its end. The Manchu dynasty would be its last.